All right, this is my fourth video that I'm making tonight for Late Night Larry because I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to catch up on some stuff. And this one I wasn't planning on making to discuss this because it's not necessarily a topic. It's more of a tinfoil hat sort of thing. Putting my tinfoil hat on before anybody else puts that tinfoil hat on. Because I have heard that, well, obviously, some of you may have watched the Bowman video, me talking about Bowman, how I'm worried there's not really a future for Bowman anymore, whether that's him just being the fourth best driver at Hendrick, or more my thought is, I don't know if he can come back from the injuries that he's had, all the head injuries that he's had. It's very difficult to come back especially as a race car driver, because your head's constantly just bouncing around on the racetrack. So I don't know if Bowman's coming back. And I have heard that it is a contract year for Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney, I think, has been the standout over at Penske over the last couple of years by far. Even when Logano won the championship, I still felt like Blaney was the best car that season. Logano just had the right wins at the right times. He won on fuel mileage at Vegas and then went to Phoenix, probably one of his best, if not his best racetrack, and won there. And boom, he got eliminated. He got eliminated by, guess what? Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman was the guy that ended up eliminating him, essentially. But then Alex Bowman getting penalized was the guy that brought him back in, and Logano ended up going on to win the championship that year. So, but Penske over the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, Logano is either competing for the win or he's running like 25th. Hendrick is usually anywhere between 15th and 25th, and eventually, and every once in a while, he'll get a race-winning top 5 car sort of run. But Blaney's consistently the best driver at Team Penske. He's any track. If Logano's running 25th, Blaney's usually in 10th. Blaney's always doing better than Logano, except for these occasional races where Logano just is kicking all sorts of ass, which is, I feel like it's less and less and less nowadays. But Blaney is definitely the standout driver over there at Team Penske. And if there's an opening at Hendrick Motorsports, which I think there will be, in that 48 car, and as long as Corey Day and Roger Carruth don't win the championship or go out there and win like 4 or 5, if one of those drivers wins 4 or 5 races, I think that's one of their rides, no matter what. But if that doesn't happen, if Bowman doesn't all of a sudden heat up, if he gets back into the race car in a couple of weeks, and I'm a little worried that he's not going to get back in the race car in a couple of weeks. I think it could be longer than that. I'm very worried about that. But if those things happen, I think there will be an offer on the table for Ryan Blaney to go to Hendrick Motorsports to drive the number 48, which would be a blockbuster move. I think the most recent move that would remind me of is when Dale Earnhardt Jr. went to Hendrick Motorsports from Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. I think that's probably the biggest blockbuster move since then. Obviously, you have Truex going to Joe Gibbs Racing, but he went from Furniture Row, which wasn't a very big team, and a team that was shutting down, to Joe Gibbs Racing. Obviously, you had that, but I don't think that's on the same wavelength. You had Tony Stewart leave Joe Gibbs Racing for making his own race team. I think that's a very different situation. But a driver going from one powerhouse organization to another powerhouse organization, maybe the Carl Edwards one, actually. I think that would actually be the more comparable one, would probably be Carl Edwards or Matt Kenseth going over to Joe Gibbs Racing from Roush. I think that actually probably would be a really good comparison as well on what we could potentially be having here with, I think, Ryan Blaney. I have my tinfoil hat on right now, y'all. I think Ryan Blaney is going to potentially go to the number 48 car in 2027 and leave Ford for Chevrolet. Ryan Blaney is a sponsor's dream. Ryan Blaney has been ingrained with that NASCAR garage his whole life. Obviously, we probably don't know much about it, but I would assume he has some sort of relationship with Rick Hendrick. Obviously, he has a very close friendship with Chase Elliott. Other than maybe Bubba Wallace, I would say Chase Elliott is Ryan Blaney's best friend on the grid. So, I don't know, man. I got my tinfoil hat on right now. I think Blaney to Hendrick Motorsports to drive that number 48 makes a lot of sense. And I haven't seen anybody talking about it. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And this move would remind me so much of when Joe Gibbs Racing had had that all-star team, or when Hendrick Motorsports had the all-star team, you had Joe Gibbs Racing, they had Carl Edwards, they had Matt Kenseth, they had Kyle Busch, they had Denny Hamlin. Then you go over to Hendrick Motorsports, they had Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Mark Martin. That's what this move reminds me of. I think it would be a fantastic move by both Hendrick Motorsports and, because Ryan Blaney, I'm not going to say he's being held back per se by Penske, but he's definitely outperformed. And Joey Logano is not a slouch. Joey Logano is a 3-time champion, one of the most winningest drivers in the history of our sport. And Ryan Blaney consistently outperforms him. And that's not just this season. That's been for the last 4 seasons. So I think it would be a genius move for both Blaney and Hendrick. I think if Blaney goes and drives that 48 car, another prediction, that if Bowman leaves that 48 car, it's going to be the 25 again. So Ryan Blaney, this is my prediction, Ryan Blaney will drive the number 25 for Hendrick Motorsports in 2027. Come back to this video once that happens, because that's my prediction. Ryan Blaney is going to drive the number 25 for Hendrick Motorsports in 2027, and I would expect him to win multiple races if he does that. I think it would be a fantastic move by Hendrick to sign a driver like Ryan Blaney. And for Ryan Blaney, there's no better team in all of motorsports than Penske, just because of everything they do. They're in IMSA, they're in IndyCar. They don't have a supercars team, but they have an association with supercars, and they're all over the place when it comes to motorsports for sure. But if we're just talking about the NASCAR Cup Series, even though I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Hendrick Motorsports, I don't dislike Hendrick Motorsports, but I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Hendrick Motorsports either. Hendrick Motorsports is the best. It's the best of the best. And I think it'd be a great move by both sides to make it happen. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about my tinfoil hat thoughts?